All right, folks. So welcome everyone to the Visual Analytics with Tableau class. We started off with Tableau in the last class. We just got to understand the Tableau interface a little bit, just draw a couple of visualizations. Before that, in the last class, we went through the theory and kind of understood the basics, the foundations of visual analytics. So that's what we've been up to so far. Now, if you happen to have missed the class last week, don't worry, we'll try to keep it in such a way that we kind of cover the class. We make sure that we cover stuff that is really important. If it is there from last week, we'll try to go back to our presentation. Actually get to reference our presentation as we work on our data today and get to see how the theory kind of connects up with the practice on Tableau. So that's what we've got lined up. And why Tableau is a really important question, because whenever you spend time working on a particular tool, hopefully there's a good reason why you're doing that. You could have picked up Cognos. You could have picked up ClickView. So if some of you have heard of these tools, there's a bunch of tools out there in the market, and all of them are fairly good. I wouldn't say that one is significantly, inferior to another, though it might be fair to say that some are superior to the others. So in the past, you might have heard of tools like Cognos being used for data visualization extensively. You might also have heard of a tool called ClickView. It's still being used in a lot of companies out there. And apart from these, there's also a lot of open source options, right? And I'm happy to share, for those of you that work in companies that cannot afford Tableau, there are open source tools that I will share with you if you drop me an email that are pretty similar to what you see here in Tableau today. Now, earlier you actually did not have access to Tableau unless you paid $1,900. Ouch, that's kind of hard. So as it turns out now, it's free of cost. So for those of you that would like to practice unlimited, you just get to use a version of Tableau called Tableau Public, and it's available on the website www.tableau.com. So the good news is that you can easily, achieve the learning with Tableau Public. You can also demonstrate, right, the power of Tableau to your company, to your leadership, to your manager, to your customers, in case you have a customer that wants analytics to be done visually, and get them to understand why it might be a good idea to invest these $1,900. Okay. Now, of course, this is just an indicative price. There are many different pricings. By the way, if you're a student of any sort, if you're enrolling for any course, you can actually use a one-year version of Tableau that comes for students, right? So the one-year student license is actually free of cost, and all you need is you need to produce an ID card that says that you're a student, and you get a one-year version of Tableau fully loaded. Okay, cool. So let's move ahead and let's talk about why we're going to invest our time in Tableau. All of you have significant experience, and the reason that we're going to spend time in Tableau, quite simply put, is that Gartner has rated Tableau as the leading visual analytics tool, and not just one year in a row. I think it's now more than 2 or 3 years in a row that Tableau has been rated this way. So if you look at it over here, clearly Tableau is leading the pack, right? And these are the leaders, as you can see over here, right? These are the leaders. And in those leaders, you'll also notice that ClickView is fairly popular, as is MSBI. And Microsoft, when you see Microsoft, it basically means MSBI. And in the MSBI suite, the two products that are used heavily is Power Maps, and which we've learned, as well as the Power Pivot, right? Let me just shortcut here, right? Okay. So we're trying to invest time in some of the leading tools. You'll also see that SAS has, a suite called SAS Visual Analytics. Okay. It's a fairly powerful, suite. You'd want to actually learn about that if you're in a company that has already installed SAS, and because they've invested so much in it, they like to use the Visual Analytics tool. Now, when I look at the rest of this, well, there's a lot of options out here. But yeah, I mean, I'd say definitely Tableau, MSBI, and ClickView are the top of the stack when I look at all of the tools out there in analytics. Okay, good. So we probably now know why it's a good idea to now invest even more time and get deeper into Tableau today and get to understand how Tableau works, especially with respect to creating dashboards that are really powerful in Tableau. I hope you've had a chance to download Tableau on your computers. There's a couple of versions of Tableau that we could use today. Again, like the last class, you could use Tableau Public, and that's option number one. So in case you have Tableau Public already installed on your computers, that should be perfectly fine for around 90% of the class. You might find that around 10% of the functionality might not be available, but that's okay. You'll be able to practice later. So you should be okay. No reasons to panic. If you have the full 14-day trial, right, that would be perfect, right? Because you'd then be able to practice 100% of this class. If you have an older version of Tableau, currently we might run with point 2, right? But if you have point 1, by the way, it usually says 10.1, 10.2. If you have point 1 or an early version that says 9 point something, let's say 9.1, 9.2, that should be okay as well. You should be able to practice almost all of the class in an earlier version, at least as far as today's class goes. So with that as a prelude, I'm actually going to open up Tableau on my computer. Right, so let me get Tableau up and going. There we go. It's firing up. Okay, and I'm probably going to move out of presentation mode so that I get a full view. Okay, here you go. Now, some of you notice that there's a couple of differences between the Tableau that you see today and the Tableau that you saw on my computer last week. Just because last week I was using the public version, and this week I have the full trial. And I've actually downloaded the full trial so that we're all on the same version, and my screen looks absolutely the way yours does. So can you confirm in the chat box once you've got Tableau open? You don't yet have to open any file, but if you can all just confirm that you have some version of Tableau opened up on your computers. Great, so thank you so much, Hiroki, Joshua, Divya, Ashima, Arvind, Shidhar, Karina, and Minakshi all have it open. And how about the rest of us? Venkat, Kavita, Godwin, do you have some version of Tableau, Chandra? Ankur, I know it's short notice, but were you able to download? And Sridhar, I know that you have a version, so that should be perfectly fine. Okay, so we've got responses flowing in. All right, so very quickly, right, I want to point out what might look a little different about today's version of Tableau. You might have noticed that there's the option for you to connect to a lot of different servers and download the data from the servers or make a live connection to the server. If you click on more below to a server, you notice this time that there's a bunch of databases that you can connect to, a bunch of different sources of information, I'd say, that you can connect to using the full trial. Now, this ranges from the Amazon Redshift database to IBM Insights, DB2, pretty famous. You've got SAP, HANA, you've got Oracle, many different versions of that, MySQL, Google Sheets. Yep, you can actually connect Tableau to your Google Sheets and analyze that data as well. And you can connect Tableau up to the Google Analytics on your website in case you're running a website or you plan to run a website or a business in the future. So you can connect up to your Google Analytics from here, and you can analyze your Google Analytics data. Apart from the analytics that Google provides, you could get more in depth and analyze this on Tableau as well, right? So awesome, a bunch of options. Karina says absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. A bunch of options for you to connect to virtually any data source and start deriving insights from the data that you've got. Okay. Now for today, okay, Goodwin says his internet was acting funny. Hey, Goodwin, luckily for you, I haven't said a lot. Okay, I just basically explained why Tableau is a great tool for us to work on and rated one of the best by Gartner worldwide. and we've opened up Tableau now, so you can also open up Tableau. We haven't yet connected to our database, so no worries at all, Goodwin. You're fine. Okay, so for today, we're using the same file that we used last week, and some of you may have access to that particular file. It's called the Global Superstore, right? And we need to connect afresh to the Global Superstore, and that's what I'm going to do now. So how do you do that? Where it says connect on the top left corner of your screen, below connect, it says connect to a file, and it says Excel. So what I'm going to do is click on Excel. Immediately opens up a dialog box for me to select the file, the Global Superstore. I double click, and Tableau starts the process of connecting to the Global Superstore dataset. It doesn't take a huge amount of time. This dataset is around 38,000 rows, if my memory serves me right. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it was around 37 to 38,000 rows of data. And this is what your screen should look like now. So can you just quickly confirm that you've all opened up this file? Thank you, Venkat, Divya, Joshua, Sridhar, Karina, Arvind, Ankur. Okay, that's great. Okay, so Ashima requests a repeat. So Ashima, really easy. On the top left corner of Tableau, right, you see the option that says connect on the top left corner below the file menu, and below connect, you see connect to Excel. Okay, and you click on Excel and you open up the dialog box and you navigate to the file Global Superstore on your computer, and you open up that file. Can you do that before we move ahead? So we want to make sure that you're with us, Divya. Okay. Let me see if I can quickly unmute her. Hey, Divya, are you able to open up the file now? I've unmuted you. Divya, I've got you on speaker. So are you able to open the file in Tableau?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, that's superb. Thank you so much. All right, stay together, folks. So once you open up the file, you will see on the left hand side that there are orders, there are people, there are returns, and we'd seen this last time. So these are basically a lot of customer orders that came through, and the people who have made these orders and the returns that have been processed. So what we're going to do for today is we're going to take the orders file, and you can just double click on the orders file. It'll immediately get opened up in the Tableau canvas, like so. The moment you do that, you can see your entire data down below, right? And this is what the view should look like. And you scroll all the way to the bottom, right? And that's your data there. Okay, you can scroll back up again. Okay, so hopefully everyone is at this view. Now, before I move ahead, I just want to point out that there's a couple of ways that people connect to data in Tableau. They choose a live connection to the data, which is what we've done right now. And how do you know that? So you know that because over here, you see a couple of options, right? You see live and you see an extract of the data. So currently we're actually going with the live version. What are the benefits? The benefits are if anything changes with that Excel file in the background, your Tableau dashboard remains up to date, right? And if you connect to an extract, it's a little faster. So that's the benefit that you get of connecting to the extract is basically the speed, right? But then the data is static, which means the data does not change. You just work on a data set which is a static download. And even if there are changes to that data set in the background while the business is going on, the version that you're working with really will not change. So depending on what your need is, if you're not looking at a very real-time dashboard, you could actually go with a static version of your data. But if you're looking at a very real-time data set, then probably a live connection would make a lot more sense. Okay. So Arvind says, do we need to have a specific data structure to make these charts? And how do we construct the chart having multi-dimensional data? We will cover this, Arvind, as we move forward. But just for your information, the data structures are really easy in Tableau. So if I, for example, here we have orders, but if I double click on returns, right, and that shows up on the canvas as well. In a very short while, you'll see it come up. And you notice that Tableau has automatically made a connection between orders and returns. And it's a join, and Tableau has found that the market field is there in both of the sheets. It's there in the orders Excel sheet. It's also there in the returns Excel sheet, which Tableau has opened up, right? So it kind of makes some of these connections intuitively. But for the time being, I'll remove returns. We're just going to work on orders today. Okay. And absolutely, so live databases, you know, Ashima has a question saying that live connection means changes in the source data will reflect in the dashboard. That's correct. And extract means that you're going to download it and work on a downloaded version of the data from a live database, and changes in the live database will not show up in your Tableau dashboard. So that is correct understanding, Ashima. And Arvind, if you have a common field between two data sheets, Tableau will automatically detect that common field and make a recommendation for you. If there are no common fields, then Tableau will not detect those common fields. So I hope that helps. Okay. So we're going to go right away to sheet number 1 on the bottom left corner of the screen. And just to show those of you that are trying this for the very first time, over here on the bottom left corner of the screen, you see sheet 1 written, right? And you also see a plus sign here to add new sheets. You see another plus sign, but this is not sheets. This is a dashboard, okay? So the plus sign over here is a dashboard. The next plus sign is a story point. So I just want to sort of, clear this out so that you know and you're very comfortable with this going forward. Okay, we're going to add a lot of new sheets today using this button over here, right? So roughly what it looks like is it's got a square and it's got some 3 graphs in it, right, to sort of denote that this is a sheet where we're going to make some visuals, some charts, and it's got a plus sign on the corner. So a little bit like this, right? So that's to add your new sheet. And then you see the other one over here, which looks fairly similar, but it's different in the sense that it's got like a grid in it. And the reason it has that grid is that you could have multiple, graphs in that, and that is basically a dashboard. So hopefully if we get there today, we will also create a dashboard in Tableau. It also has a plus sign on it. And then the last one reads a little bit like a book, right? So I'll just draw over here. So the last one reads a little bit like a book, okay, like so. And it also has a plus sign on the corner. So this is, a story point, right? And what is that? Well, we'll learn a little later, but let me just spell it out here. So you can actually create some stories. If you look at it, right, it's a little bit like PowerPoint. So it's a way of presenting in Tableau. And the idea is you don't need to go to PowerPoint. You can actually present right here in Tableau using this Tableau story point and the presentation feature. And then over here, you also have the data source that we just came from, and you have all the sheets. So we're going to move to sheet number 1 now and add a sheet and start making visualizations. Good, so I hope that helps again as a quick recap and make you really comfortable with the interface for those of us that are trying for the first time, or those of us that, you know, just wanted a quick recap. So I'm going to go to sheet 1 now, and we'll just recap our very first visualization, right? Before that, what I'm going to do is in the data source, you'll remember last time what we'd done was we'd actually taken the order ID, right? And on the top right corner of the order ID, there's a drop down button. And this is in the data source on the bottom left corner of your screen. So we'd clicked on that, and you'll remember that we had clicked on split. There's an option to split. So we just chose split. And what we'd done was we deleted the second and the third splits, okay, like so, using the top right corner drop down button. And the last split, we'd actually renamed it. So we renamed it distribution center, okay. And it actually shows you the distribution center from which we shipped out the goods, whether it was in California or Indiana, or whether it was in Mexico, right? It shows you all the different distribution centers. So that's what we've done, but no worries. We'll go to sheet number 1 now. And some of you remember it was really easy to build a visualization in Tableau. The very first one that we'd built was the quantities that we'd sold in different geographies. So what we'd done, if you recall, was we'd taken the quantity from the measures and we dragged it and dropped it right on top of the columns, and it became a sum of quantities. And we dropped the category of product to the rows. There we go, nice and easy. We just dragged quantity to columns, category to rows. And then we also wanted to see what segments we were selling in. Was it which segments were actually selling well, which segments were not selling well. So we dropped that in front of the categories. And then finally, we were curious about which markets we were doing well in. So we dropped markets at a couple of places. One is that we dropped markets on top of columns, right, just before the sum of quantity. And then we'd also added a dash of color to this, right? So what we'd done was we'd taken market and dropped it on top of color as well. And once we'd done that, we had realized that Canada was kind of an emerging market. So we had annotated that particular area and said Canada is emerging as a market. Good. So this is where we got last time. Now look at the ease with which we're able to sort of do this, right? So if you look at it, for those of us that are in the class for the first time, don't worry about it. But what did we actually do, right? So let's just understand, how we actually got to this particular visualization and get comfortable with the idea of how we got to this visualization, right? It's important to understand that. So what we done was we basically looked at the things that we wanted in the rows and the things that we wanted in the columns. So the things we wanted in the columns were the markets like Africa, APAC, Canada, EMEA, EU, the US, Latin America. So if you want markets in the columns, all you need to do is pick up that field and go and drop it over there in the columns, right? And we also wanted things in the rows. So we wanted to see the different categories like furniture, office supplies, and technologies that we were making profits in. And under each one of those, after the category, we wanted to also see the segment where we, managing to make more sales to consumers or corporate customers or home office segments. So the first thing we did was, we dropped category and we selected it from over here. It's actually down below if you scroll down here, right? And we chose it and we dropped it in the rows. And then after the categories, we wanted the segments as well. So we took the segments and we dropped it on the rows as well, but after the category, not before the category. Okay. And so this is the way it showed up over here in the visualization as well. Now the last thing we did was we wanted color and we wanted the market to show up as color. So we took market, and apart from dropping it on top of the columns, we also dropped market on top of the color. And then we got the visualization that we desired. If you think about it, right, it's pretty similar to the way pivots work in Excel. So those of you that have worked on Excel, it should be somewhat intuitive. I'm not saying it's completely intuitive, but it should be somewhat intuitive, right? Now you also see here that I'm running out of space and I need to scroll, which is not so great. So there's a couple of options. One is I could use the PowerPoint feature. Instead of PowerPoint, I'll just call it the presentation mode. Where is it? So it's over here on the screen. So if I click on this, it'll maximize the screen for me. But right now I'm actually working on this data, so I don't want to move to a presentation mode. So the other thing that you could do is use fit to width. And on the left hand side of presentation mode, you see standard. You click on that and you can choose fit width. The moment I do that, it collapses the whole visualization and makes it fit this particular width. The sheet is called sheet 1, so I can actually rename this sheet and give it a different name. So probably I can just rename this and call it emerging markets. Clearly for us, Canada, Africa, EMEA. seem to be the growth markets. I would say that Africa and EMEA are the growth markets in this data set, while Canada seems to be emerging. We've got to see how far that goes. Okay. Can everyone confirm that you've got this visualization ready? I know some of you have already submitted this to contact@EquiSkill.com. For the rest of you, I hope that you've been able to actually put together this particular visualization. Okay, Kavita says yes, Arvind says yes. Okay, great. So we're going to move ahead now. And just as a quick reminder, you do recall that the Tableau automatically tries and detects a couple of things for you. So Tableau tries to understand what are the dimensions in your data, also tries to understand the measures in your data. So we talked about measures in a business being things like profit or the amount of products that we've sold or how much sales we've achieved. We want to keep things like shipping cost low. We want to keep things like discounts low. So these are measures, things that either you want them to be high or low or at a particular point in a range, while dimensions tend to be things that describe your data. For example, what kind of customer is it, or what kind of product is it, which geography are we selling in, things that you basically slice and dice your data by. Okay, so as a just quick recap, Tableau kind of auto detects those dimensions and measures for you, but it is possible for you to pick up something that Tableau has incorrectly detected. For example, if I need to pick up shipping cost, I can go pick it up and go drop it on the dimensions and move it to a dimension instead of a measure. But I won't do that because shipping cost is actually a measure. Notice that the dimensions are actually blue in color. So when you look at market, category, segment, they're all blue in color in this pivot. But when you look at the quantity, it's actually green in color. So this works as a great visual demarcation for you to see, how Tableau is actually treating this particular data set. Okay, so we're going to open a new sheet now, and let's go over to a brand new sheet, and let's actually get in depth into a lot of visualizations that we're going to draw today. So I'm going to come over here and click on this particular plus sign and open a new sheet, and let's get cracking. There we go. So this is sheet number 2. Let's start understanding what this data set is saying to us about the health of the sales for this organization. And what I'm going to do is take sales from the measures, drag it, and drop it over here on the border where it says drop the field here, right? I'll just drop it like so. It'll highlight the entire section for you like it's a scale or a ruler, and I drop the sales there. The moment I do that, I get a result saying that the total sales is $12,642,502, approximately $12 million. Now, we know that this data set contains the date on which the orders were placed. So if you actually scroll down in the dimensions, you will see the shipping date, you will see the order ID, the priority on these orders. You will also see a field called the order date. It's a little bit after the market, right? So what we're going to do is drag the order date out to the columns so that we can see how many orders we've placed over a period of time. So I'm going to drag order date now and go and drop it on top of the columns like that. The moment you do that, you see that it moves from a bar graph automatically to this visualization over here, right? And you'll notice that if you hover over this particular visualization, it shows you that in 2011, we achieved approximately $2.2 million worth of sales. 2012, 2.6, 2013, 3.4, 2014, 4.2, approximately $4.3 million. So it breaks up those $12 million into all 4 years, right? And you can actually see how much we achieved in each one of these years. Now you can expand the year and you can break this up. So where you see year in the columns, there's a small plus sign on the left hand side, right? And you can click on that plus sign, and boom, the moment you do that, you notice that it expands all of the different years, right? So not only that, it also gives you the quarters in each one of the years. And you can now see how sales actually did in 2011 for all of the quarters. And likewise for 2012, 2013, and 2014 seems to be a very vertical line, isn't it? So you can see visually when you look at this data that 2014 seems to be have been a really strong year for us as far as this data is concerned. Now, this view could be called, growth by the quarter across the years. So we can actually do that. If you want, you can rename the sheet, and let's do all of us. Let's do that now. We'll right click on sheet 2 on the bottom left, and we will rename the sheet. We'll say growth by quarter across the years. Look at how easy it is for us to achieve this particular visualization, right? It may have been a lot more effort in a different tool, but Tableau makes this really intuitive. So have all of us been able to do this? Okay, that's great. It's great to see that everyone's following along. Right, so we've got the growth across the quarters, and you can actually duplicate this particular sheet. It's really easy. So on the bottom left corner where you say growth by quarters, and let me just rename this and keep it really small. Maybe I'll just say growth across quarters, and that should convey that it's multiple quarters and years, right? So, okay, there we go. Now notice this, right? When I scroll over the sheets now, growth over quarters, look at that. You get a small visual cue as to what that particular sheet contains. So you don't even have to click on it and get inside. You can look at it from the outside. Likewise, if I go to emerging markets, I just hover over the emerging markets tab. It gives me a quick view of what's inside. Now this helps when I've got like maybe a lot of visualizations and I don't want to get into each one of them. I just want to know what's going on from the outside before I decide which one to get into. So now, what if we want to see something a little different? What if you want to see how the quarters did over the years instead of this view, which talks about how the years performed with the quarters at the bottom of the view? So that's really easy in Tableau. All you need to do is flip it around. So we're going to pivot this data on the quarters instead of pivoting it on the year. Okay, so let me just show you now. So over here, you see year, and this is what we're pivoting the data on right now. So the one that occurs first, think of that as the pivot. And we're pivoting this data on the years, not on the quarters. So what we'll do now is take the quarters and flip it and put it before the years. And immediately the data will get pivoted on that particular dimension. So let me do that now. There we go. I'm going to take quarter and place it before the year. Now, the moment I do that, you see that the quarters are on top, right? And the years are below. So this shows you the growth in Q1 across all of the different years and the growth in Q2, Q3, and Q4. As you can see, Q4 growth has been really steep in 2013 and 2014, specifically from 13 to 14. And likewise, Q3 has also been aggressive in 2013-14. So looks like we had a fabulous last couple of quarters in the year 2013 to 2014. Now notice something, right? I just want to go back to our theory and remind us of something that we learned in the theory class. Okay. We learned that you want to put time always on a particular axis. Now, does anyone remember which axis should we put time on? X-axis or Y-axis? How do human beings like time to be represented? Anyone? X or Y? Come on, folks. Try and remember from the last class. Everyone? Okay. There we go. Absolutely. I'm so glad to see this, folks. Remember, So human beings definitely prefer time on the x-axis. And if you have your way, you should always place time on the x-axis. So we learned that in the last class, right? So to just connect up with that theory here, we're just going to have a look at something that Tableau does. No matter whether you place year before orders or order before years, it tries to keep time on the x-axis. Okay, in both the cases, right? All right. So now we see, this particular view, and we've pivoted the data to see how each one of the quarters is doing before the years. Now, if you move year to the color from the columns, what it does is it actually collapses all of the years. And instead of showing them like this, it shows them with color. So let's try and do that now. We'll take year to color from the columns. And I'm going to do that and drop it on top of color. The moment I do that, I get the same view. I get the view because we're pivoting on the quarter. I get the growth for each one of the quarters. But this time, year is being represented using color instead of being shown on the graph. So it's a little easier for me to understand which year is doing great, which in this case, the legend clearly shows us 2014 was a great year. You can also change the order to months, and you can do that when you click on quarter, right, where it says order date, you can actually choose the months as well. So instead of quarters, if you want to go for months, in the column where it says quarter, just click on the drop down, the pill in the drop down, and select month. Moment you do that, it breaks it up instead of quarters, it breaks it up into each and every month. You can easily go back to your previous view by choosing quarter, like so. Or you could look at each and every month, like so. We'll stay with the view of the months right now. Suppose, we're looking at the sum of the sales, right? And how do you know that we're actually looking at the sum of sales? Well, the aggregation that you're using is actually visible over here. And you can see it over here, it says sum. So where it says rows, you can clearly see it's actually doing the sum of the sales. For some reason, suppose we feel that we'd like to actually have a look at the mean or the average of the sales rather than the sum of the sales. It's easy for you to change those aggregations by using the pill that occurs over here. So let's actually do that. Let's learn how to change the aggregation, right? And we're going to click on the pill. And you see the measure, and in bracket it says sum in parentheses. And you can see that sum has been selected over here. You can easily change it to average. I'll click on average, and there you go. It actually now shows you the average sales in each of the months with year shown as color. So all this is really becoming easy, isn't it? Now, if you want to go back, if you want to undo the step that we just did right now, you can do a couple of things. You could always go to the drop-down pill, and again, you could select the sum as the aggregation. That would be one way of doing it. But Tableau also allows you, just give me a second here. Tableau also allows you to undo using a couple of very familiar features. So one is you have the Control Z shortcut on Windows, which for the Mac users might be Command Z. And you also have a back button on the Tableau interface. So let me show us all the back button on the Tableau interface right now. So it's over here where it says File Data. You have a back button. So you could click on that, or you could go with Control Z. Both of those will actually reverse what you just did, whatever step that you took a short while ago, right? So what I'd like you to do now is you want to do Control Z, okay? So you want to go back like this, and you come back to this particular view over here. Now, suppose you want to see the year over year growth. We'd like to see how the growth has been from last year to this year, and I'd like to see that from each and every year. So again, that is also easy to achieve. All of these business calculations that we look at on a regular basis have been coded into Tableau already. So on the sum of sales in the rows, if you click on the pill in the drop down, you see something at the bottom that says quick table calculations. So in the quick table calculations, you can see that there's a bunch of calculations that some of you probably use on a regular basis, like the percentage difference, the ranking, moving averages, YTD, year till date totals, year over year growth, maybe YTD growth, which is the growth from January to March this year would be YTD growth, for example. So in this case, suppose we want to use YOY growth, right? Year over year. So you can click on year over year growth over here in quick table calculations. And the moment you do that, you get the view immediately, right? Now, suppose you still want to see the original sales. What you can do is you can place it back from the measures, okay? And you can get both the views. So currently the view that you have is the sum of the sales, but you're looking at the year over year growth, okay? If I also want the original sales, I can drag it out again. So I go to the measures, I click on sales, and I drag it out and I drop it again in front of this quick table calculation that I've done for YOY growth. There you go. Now the moment you do that, okay, you see that you've got both the views. You've got the YOY view. You've also got the sales view, which is the total of sales. Now notice that Arvind has a quick observation. It's a really good observation. Notice that 2011, there is no YOY data. The reason for that is we actually don't have data for 2010 in this particular file. So we're not able to calculate, or Tableau is not able to calculate what is the YOY growth, year over year growth for the year 2011, because the file actually doesn't contain 2010 data. So that's a very good observation there, Arvind. Um, and now you see over here the YOY growth as well as the original view that we had of the sales. If you want, you can actually have the YOY values hidden. You can put them in the tooltip. So instead of the graph, you can drag it, and drop it on the tooltip. And then what will happen is that you can hover over the graph and look at the growth from last year to this year, instead of having it here on the screen. So we want to keep visualization simple, right? That's something we'd learned the last time. And this is getting a little complex for the time being. So what we're going to do is take this entire visualization that we've created over here, which is basically the year over year growth, and we're going to make this a part of the tooltip. How do we do that? Well, we take the calculation, and you can see the delta here in sum of sales. Delta denotes that this is a quick table calculation field. So we're going to take this field and drop it over here on the tooltip. And let's do that now. I'll clear up the drawing for all of us. There we go. I'm going to take this calculated field and drop it on top of the tooltip. Right. Moment I do that, now what happens is if I want to see the year over year growth, I can hover over the graph, like over here. So when I hover over this point, which is September in the year 2014, I see that the percentage of difference in sales from the previous year, September, to this year, September, is 27.76% positive. So this now becomes tooltip information. Tooltip basically means that I can hover over the graph and I can view that information if I want to. If I don't want to, then I don't have to see it. Okay, if I want it, I can just hover over the graph and I can see that information, and that is known as a tooltip. Now looky here. So you can see that we clearly see a huge upswing in sales in August, and this is the back to school sale. We'll talk about it very shortly. So Everyone's got the concept of the tooltip now and how we can actually make the visualization simpler by utilizing the tooltip. What if you want to compare how the sales is doing in different categories? So all you need to do is drag category out and drop it in the rows like so, in front of the sum of sales. So I'll drop category before the sum of sales because I'd like to see it in the rows. Here we go. And the moment I've done that, I can see the performance in each of the different categories. Can everybody see that? Yes? Everybody got this view? Okay, Sundaram got it. Ankur? Okay, Divya says, can I repeat? So all I did was I took the category from the dimensions and I dropped it on the rows before the sum of sales. So to show you visually over here, I'll draw a red line. I took category from here and I dropped it here in the rows before the sum of sales. And I can see now, since I dropped it in the rows, I see office supplies, furniture, and technology pop up as one row each for this particular graph that I had. Nice and easy, right? The moment you start thinking about this intuitively, it makes more and more sense, right? Okay. So Goodwin will practice after the class. And the good news is, Goodwin, if you ever feel like, jumping in, the moment we move from one visualization to the next visualization, you can again start practicing. So any of you that get left behind, don't worry about it, because the moment we open a new sheet, you can start practicing again. So there's absolutely no worries at all, right? Okay. So visually, you can see which categories are doing well. Clearly, there's an upswing in technology in the year 2014. The blue line seems to be really aggressive. There seems to be an overall good growth, but clearly technology even more so. So some of this is visually, visible here, and we can also see when we're doing well, when we're not doing well. You can observe a dip in July and in August, and you can leave a comment there saying a yearly dip in July, a yearly sale in August, right? So you can annotate those areas. I'm going to right click and I'm going to see if I can annotate this particular point and call it a yearly dip in July. There we go. Just going to drag this up a little bit, see if I can place it here, and then annotate this point over here and say upswing in August. There we go. Okay. So we've made a couple of observations now, right? About okay. So Kavita says, Amit, can you tell me what measure you have for sum of sales year over year? Yes. So we'd actually, in sum of sales, right now what we've done is we actually dragged sales, Kavita, from measures and dropped it here on sum of sales. And currently, if you want to see, it seems to be a mathematical sum. So you can go over here and look at a sum. It says a sum. What we also did is we did a YOY calculation for the sales, but instead of dropping it over here, we dropped it on the tooltip. So we created that over here in the rows, but then we took it from the rows and we went and dropped it on the tooltip. So we took it from the rows, we created it and dropped it on the tooltip. So YOY is now hidden. You don't see it unless you actually hover over one of the points. For example, if you hover over this point over here, then you will see how much the YOY growth was for that particular point over the previous year. If you want to see it as a part of the graph, then again, what you need to do is take it from here, and you can actually see this here over here, right? This is nothing but your YOY calculation. Specifically, the delta here denotes that this is a YOY calculation, right? So you can drag this back and drop it out there if you want the view. Okay. So hopefully that helps. And can you export to Excel? Ashima says absolutely, and we will show you how to do that in a very short while. Okay, thank you for those questions. So what we're going to do now is we need to just understand why this is happening the way it is happening. So can someone tell me, we saw that the US was a very big market for us, right? In this data set. And we also saw that Latin America was doing really well, huge amount of sales in Latin America. And you can see in this data set a couple of things. You can see that the orders are dipping in the month of July, and you can see that they're going up every year in the month of August. You also notice that we seem to be selling a lot of stationery, a lot of office supplies, a lot of furniture, and the technology products, if you get into the data set, are more to do with things that are used a lot by educational institutions and offices. So why do you think every year that sales is going down in July, and why is it going up in August? So what event in the North American market might be triggering this? Can everyone take a guess? Absolutely. So Venkat, he's got it right. The schools reopen, right? Specifically, you've got the fall and the spring semester. So isn't this when the fall semester starts? Everyone, yes or no? Okay, Arvind says yes. Divya, yes. Hiroki. So what you notice here is nothing but what we call seasonality of data. So we also call it sales seasonality. And you notice that the sales seem to be going down every year at this particular time and going back up. And this is nothing but the back to school sale, right? So you can annotate this entire area, right click and annotate the area and say the annual back to season sale. Now, by the way, when you actually uncover something called seasonality in data, for example, if you uncover seasonality for the Black Friday sale, which is another really big sale that happens, or for Easter. So you'll notice that it happens year over year, and there are certain implications in analytics when you discover seasonality in the data. There are certain techniques that cannot be applied if the data is of a seasonal nature. One of them could be, for example, the Johansson method. We don't need to get into that right now. I don't want you to be intimidated by the Johansson method, but it's important for you to know that we can use Tableau to uncover seasonality in our data. And number two, that seasonality in our data has implications for a lot of things in analytics, right, which we will talk about in the future. Okay, so you can save this with others. You can right click on the chart and you can do a bunch of things, right? Those of you that have the full trial, you can right click, you can copy the image. Now you'll notice that last time we tried to do that, but we couldn't do it because I was using Tableau Public last time. But this time I've got a full trial, and all of you that have a full trial, please right click on this image, say copy, click on image, and you can actually copy it in many different ways. So let's try to understand all four of these ways to copy the data. The very first one over here, let's talk about that a little bit. Let me just whip out my pen here. Just give me a second. There we go. Okay. So the very first one, what it does is it shows you the graph, and then on the right hand side of the graph, it shows you the legends, right? In this case, the legend is what you see over here, right? This is the legend. Okay. And then you also have the option of, placing the legends one below another, or you could place them on the right of each other, so they're adjacent. You also have the option of drawing the graph with the legends below, so you can copy it in that way, right? And then finally, you've got this fourth option, right, which is adjacent to each other but below the graph. So all of these things, right, you don't want to go and do this in PowerPoint or in Paint. You can actually make life really easy by copying it just the way you want it. Okay, so let's say I want it like the first one. Okay, so I can copy this. I can go to PowerPoint. Let me just open up new slide and paste it. There we go. And I get my visualization. Go paste it just the way I want it. Okay. Now, by the way, if I had chosen the other option, so if I right clicked and I said copy the image, and I'd chosen, let's say, the one where my labels are below, which is the third option, and I copy it, and then I go and paste it, so it'll do that for me. So let me just insert this. Again, we've got my default text, lorem ipsum. Don't worry about that. There we go. So this time you see that the visualization is on top and the legend is actually below the visualization. So all of this is easy for you to achieve. You can get things sorted out just the way you want them, copy them just the way you want them in Tableau. Okay. So I hope this helps you look at how you can copy this data and paste it as an image. But now look at this, right? You also have some calculations that are built into this. Very short while, Kavita had talked about the YOY sales increase amounts, which you can actually see in the tooltip. So what if I want to see the math behind this, right? I've done all this cool drag and drop, but I want to see the math, okay? By the way, like Arvind said, if you hover over the blue line, which is 2011, you'll notice there's no Y over Y growth, right? It's missing, the data is missing, right? If you hover anywhere over the blue line, you don't see that field because we don't have 2010 data. Now to achieve, copy the data behind this visualization, I right click, I say copy, and this time I select data. Okay. It would seem like not a lot happened, but let's just figure this out. So I'm going to open up Excel now. And let me see if I actually copied something or not. So I'm going to paste my data here. And yes, I've actually copied the data from Tableau. Now I'll select the whole sheet and double click anywhere between the two columns at any point, and it just spaces this out for me nicely. I can see if I just zoom in a little bit for you. There we go. I can see things that existed in Tableau. So I can see the different categories. I can see the months, the years. I can also see the percentage of difference in sales YOY from last year to this year. Now notice that we actually haven't done this calculation at all. And this calculation does not exist in the Excel sheet. We only worked on, we only worked visually on this data. And Tableau has done the calculations in the background and stored it for us. Okay. And that is visual analytics. So now I want to connect back to our theory. And way back in our last class, we talked about a couple of very important things, right? So it said what separates visualization from visual analytics. And we learned that just any visualization is not visual analytics unless you do three things, which is you explore the data visually, you analyze it visually, and we collaborate and ask questions which we answer while moving from one visualization to another. And when you do these things, and you can actually bunch in and throw in a couple of more things, which is this over here. When you do all 7 of these things, then what you're doing is visual analytics. And this is what we're doing right now. We'll come back to this slide again towards the end of the class, but let's, for the time being, go back to our Excel sheet. Okay, so we can see the sales. We can see the percentage difference in sales YOY. Now, what can you do with this? Well, you can go Control A and you can go Control T. Click on the table, say Control A, Control T, convert it to a nice table in Excel, and you could do some conditional formatting with this, right? I hope some of you remember conditional formatting, but if you don't, just as a quick, revision, you can go to Insert. You can go to Home, and in Home, you could choose conditional formatting and color scales. So in color scales, if I choose green to red, or I could also choose red to green to denote how much growth I have from quarter to quarter. Now it's trying to draw the whole table. It's not working out a lot. You can also do conditional formatting for a column. So let's try just this column here, right? The percentage difference in sales. So I'll click on anywhere in this column. I'll press Control Space Bar. So it selects the entire data, but it does not select the header, right? And then let me see if conditional formatting makes a lot of sense for me. Okay, now this is beginning to make more sense, right? So I chose the very first heat map in conditional formatting, and I got a nice view. I can easily see using red color, right, that furniture in January 2014 was negative minus 14.68% compared to furniture in January 2013. Similarly, if I scroll down, I have concerns about furniture in Feb 2014 as well. I have concerns about technology in March 2012. It's unusual that we didn't achieve more sales in technology in March, right? So you can actually even go back to Excel and hash it out and just have a look at where your concerns are, right? Using the conditional formatting and heat maps here. So there you go. I hope some of you are trying this at your end. Now we're making some very practical use of what we've learned in the previous classes as well. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this particular view over here, right? And Tableau makes this very easy, right? All of this is real easy. How many of you think that this is far easier to achieve than you might want to do this? Suppose you wanted to achieve this particular graph using Excel um, or some other visualization tool that you've used in the past. How many of you feel Tableau is actually far easier and far more intuitive? Okay, let's have a look at the comments. Very easy, Minakshi, Hiroki, right? Goodwin, absolutely. And that's the whole reason why they ask you to pay $1,900. Oh my God. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's now create what we know as a crosstab. Okay, we'd seen crosstabs in Excel and we'd understood that crosstabs are a good way to visualize data, but not a great way to store data. Right? Data should be stored in a tabular format, but it can be visualized as a crosstab. So suppose I want to visualize this entire data as a crosstab. So you can right click on the tab at the bottom left and you can duplicate this as a crosstab. So let me come here, growth by the quarters, I'll right click, and when I right click on growth by quarters, which is the current sheet I'm on, you see duplicate as a crosstab, and I'm going to click on that. The moment you do that, it automatically creates a crosstab of the same visualization, right? So you see the categories, the years, the percentage difference in sales, and the months. Okay, I hope everyone was able to right click and duplicate as crosstab. If you are not, I'll just show you again. Right click and click on duplicate as crosstab. Moment you do that, you come to this particular view over here. This is the third sheet now in my Excel, in my Tableau worksheet. You can easily swap the axis in Tableau. So on the bottom, or right on the top where you see the file menu and you see server, right? Below server, you will see an option to actually swap the rows and columns, right? Okay, so everyone says yes, you're able to do that. That's great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap the rows and columns by clicking on this icon over here, approximately right above columns. So I'll click on it once, and the moment I do that, it flips it around. So it puts the months, on the column, and it puts the years on the rows. Okay, so we've swapped that now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move category from the columns to the rows, but we'll move it before the months. Okay, so I'll take the category from the columns and move it to the rows, but before the months. There you go. And what it achieves is exactly that. It puts the category right here. So let me show you. There you go. It puts the category right here in the rows. So you see a category row for furniture, a row for office supplies, but it puts it before the months. So look at how intuitive it is, right? You just drop it and it shows up exactly in that sequence over here, right? Okay, I'm going to clear this drawing. Right, so this is the view that you should currently have of your data. Okay, I hope all of you are able to drop the category. To make this fit a little bit better on my screen, let me see if I can go back right on top where it says standard. Okay, and click on standard, and let me see if I can click on the fourth option that says the entire view. Oh, that's nice. So now I don't have to scroll anymore. I get a nice view of the data that's fitting my entire screen here, right? Okay, this is much better, right? This is an ideal cross tab, okay, for all of us here. Now we're worried that profits didn't do so well in the annual sale. So before I go there, I just want to check how many of us were able to reach this view over here. How many of us have been able to reach the crosstab view? Okay, Hiroki, Shida, Arvind, Minakshi. Okay, and for the rest of us, Ashima is also there. Joshua, okay, Karina, fantastic, fantastic. And don't worry, if you're not practicing, don't worry. When I move on to the next view, I'll take you all along with me again. Okay, okay. So now you're worried, okay, that profits didn't do so well. Okay, I'm worried about profits. That's what mankind is worrying about a lot these days. So how do I actually get to see how profits are doing? I'd love to use pre-attentive visual attributes, and profit is a measure. So let me see if I can use color, right? So what I'll do is I'll drag profit out from the measures and I'll go and drop it on top of color. So from the measures pane, I pick up profits and drop it on the color, like so. Now, the moment I do that, I can see that it's kind of made the numbers, different in color. It's picked up darker blues, lighter blues, and a couple of places in 2012, I see that it's actually picked up some kind of orange color there, right? Light orange color. And I don't know why this is happening. So why do you think it's picked up different colors for the numbers? What do you think the color is denoting? What are the darker colors denoting, like you see on the bottom right of your screen over here? And what are the lighter colors, especially the orange color, denoting? Remember what we did was we dragged profit and dropped it on color. Okay, so we've got a response in the chat sheet. Sundaram says darker is profit, higher is profit, absolutely, higher profit with the darker colors, right? Orange is a loss, says Hiroki, absolutely, right? Okay, you got it. So it's actually denoting profit using colors. Now these colors, aren't they a little bit too pale here, right? You can imagine using a projector that's kind of 5 years old, and all of this is going to be lost on your audience, isn't it? So you want to click on colors and edit colors and just make this a little bit darker there, right? So I'll click on colors now. Okay, there we go. I'll click on the edit colors button and I'm going to use the full color range. There's a third checkbox that says use full color range, and I'm going to step it up to 6 colors. So I'll checkbox step color and check it up to 6 instead of 5. Okay, and once I've done that, I can click on OK. Now, by the way, red seems to reflect profit, but blue, I wish I could use a different color as in blue to denote high profit. Red is cool for low profit, but so let me click on this blue box over here. Okay, you see the blue box on the right corner. I click on it and boom, I have the option to choose a different color. I'm going to choose green. I click on green and I say okay. So I'll go from red to green for profit, which sounds far more intuitive for me and my audience who's going to view this visualization. Good. So now when I do that, I actually see red for loss and I see deeper greens. Profits are far easier, right? Okay. But I want to make this even more visual. I want this crosstab to be so visual that it's just going to occur to us in the matter of a second how things are doing, right? So to make it more visual, I'm going to undo this step. So I'm going to press Control Z once. That's it. When I press Control Z once, I come back to my old view with the blue and the orange color. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the mark type to square, from automatic. Okay, so let me see where the mark types are. Let me show you that on the screen. It's the very first time we're using the mark type. So let me make sure I get you comfortable with that. So over here, you see the mark type and it says automatic. So I'm going to make that change, okay? So there we go. I'm going to click on the drop down, and instead of automatic, I'm going to choose square. And the moment I choose square, the numbers kind of disappear, okay? But I clearly see, the darker blues, I see the orange, I see the light colors, light grays. It's really easy and visual for me to kind of predict. But I'd love to see my numbers as well, so I can go to labels. And right on the right side of color size, you've got labels, and you can check box show mark labels. Now I see my labels, I see my colors as well. Okay, and I'll just go to color once, and I'll pick up the colors that I'd liked. So I'll go to green and red, that's fine. I'll step up the colors to 6 and use the full color range. There you go. Now, doesn't this do a great job of telling you, where the deeper profits are, right? Wherever you see bright green colors. So can you tell me, in furniture, office supplies, and technology, right, the three categories that you see, which one is most profitable in the year 2014? Waiting for responses in the chat box, and there we go. So technology, absolutely. And Karina says that's really cool. It helps to distinguish the values. Yes, absolutely, Karina. And Sridhar, Ashima, Karina, everyone say technology. Goodwin says technology. How about after technology? Which one is second most profitable? Okay, and let's wait for the responses. How about after technology? And everyone says office supplies. And guess what? None of you are looking at the numbers, right? You're just looking at the greens and the reds. And if there was one year which you were deeply concerned about, it was probably furniture in the year 2012. So this does a great job of showing us what's really going on with respect to profitability. Furniture doesn't seem to have that much of a dark green upswing, right? But let's find out whether this is happening in all of our stores or just in some of our locations. For the time being, what I'm going to do is see if I can, rename a couple of sheets. Okay, so the sheet that I had called growth by quarters, I'm actually going to rename it and call it sales seasonality, because that's more important. Okay, so I'll just rename growth by quarters as sales seasonality. And this particular sheet that I'm working on right now, I'm just going to rename it crosstab. Really easy, right? Just call it my crosstab. It's a visual crosstab that we have here. And I'm going to add a new sheet that we're going to work on now. Great, so we've got emerging markets. We've got Canada is the emerging market. We've got sales seasonality. There's clearly a dip before the fall season every year. And we've got a crosstab that tells us that technology followed by office supplies seem to be where all the profits are for us in our business. Now remember, the crosstab is a great report format, but not a great way to store the data. So we know that furniture profits are bad. We are now deeply concerned about furniture because you can see light green colors in 2011, but really it hasn't improved a lot. Even in 2014, you can see the same light green colors as you saw in 2011. And there's 2012, which was really bad. So I'm beginning to get worried now about furnitures and whether we should be in this business, right? And we're going to explore that a little bit more. And Tableau makes it really easy by using a feature called Show Me. So what is Show Me? Show Me is on the top right corner of your screen. We'd used it in the previous class, right? And we're actually going to add a new worksheet and use the feature called Show Me to explore furniture profits and to find out what's going on with furniture profits. So what is Show Me? Let me click on Show Me and open a new sheet first up. There we go. Sheet number 4, and open up Show Me. There we go. As you can see, it's all grayed out. So we talked about this in the last class. Show Me has a lot of different charts, and it tells you how many measures or how many dimensions you can use for each one of those charts. So for example, for bar graphs, you could use one or more dimensions, zero or more dimensions, and one or more measures. So when we drag sales out, and dropped it on the graph, and it drew one single bar graph of sales, it basically used the horizontal bar. All we depicted was the sales. So to show you again, there we go. I'll drop sales here. Now look, when I drop sales out, it's one measure, but I haven't dropped out any dimension. It recommends horizontal bars. It says horizontal bars are good when you have 0 or more dimensions. In this case, I have 0 dimensions right now, or 1 or more measures. In this case, my measure is sales. So just to sort of intuitively show you how show me kind of works. Okay, right, there we go. So it's got all of these different charts, and enormous amount of charts available in Tableau. Not all of them automatically get accommodated in Show Me. A lot of them you learn over a period of time as you work on Tableau. Now to see how sales are doing in different countries, right? Let's actually click on sales over here in measures, and I've clicked on sales. Now I press the control button on my keyboard, and I also click on country. So I click on country in the dimensions. The moment I do that, Show Me recommends this chart over here. It says, try out the symbol map with one or more geographical dimension. The geographical dimension in this case is country. 0 or more other dimensions. I haven't selected any other dimension right now. And it also allows you to select 0 or more measures, up to 2 measures. So I've selected one measure right now, which is sales. We'll shortly select one more measure. For the time being, what I'll do is I'll double click on this map of the world, okay, the symbol map, and I'll double click it now. Moment I do that, I get this particular view over here. All of you can actually practice this along with me. This is really easy. So even those of you that got lost a little behind, don't worry about it. Just click on country, press the control button, click on sales, click on show me, and double click the symbol map. Okay, and you will reach this particular view over here right now. I'll give you a minute. Please do this and say yes in the chat box once you're done. All right, so Goodwin's back, practicing again. Joshua, Karina, everyone's done. Great, you get a superb world view now, and you can see with the help of the size of the packed bubbles, okay, what you have here is these are packed bubbles, right? You can see where we're getting a lot of profits, and hope all of you have got this. Okay, a lot of you seem to have got this. Okay, so symbol maps looks like a good choice. We selected it. What I'm going to do now is I'm also going to drag state and drop it on top of the chart, because it's great to know that we've got, for example, $2.2 million of sales in the US, but I'd love to know which states are performing well, which ones are not. So I pick out state from the dimension. So I have to go and find it, by the way. Okay, I'm sorry. So let me scroll down the dimensions till the bottom, and I see state over here. It's the third last or third last. I pick it out, I drag it, and I drop it over here on top of, the white area. I can drop it on, the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, anywhere where it's white. Don't go drop it on a state. So I'll just drop it over here. When I drop state, boom. In a second, Tableau breaks it up and shows you each of the states in the United States, for example, or in Australia. And you can now see in the United States that Washington seems to be doing pretty well. This must be Seattle. And then, of course, California, so San Jose and all of that. And so the East Coast and then the West Coast. Now, the East Coast is also big in terms of sales, right? The biggest probably being New York, and then somewhat good sales in Texas. I'm assuming that this is Dallas, Plano, Texas, Dallas, and then the Great Lakes area. So you've got Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, all of that, and LATAM as well. So you can now begin to see, how it's doing in different states, right? And that's great. But remember, we're trying to investigate what's going on with the profits there. So let me click on the size and over here next to color, and just increase the size a little bit, not too much. There you go. Okay. And I'll click on color, right? And there's the opacity, it's 100%, which means I cannot see through these packed bubbles. So I'm going to decrease this. I typically like to have it around 78%, 77% opacity. Add a small border, right? Choose a dark blue border there, and you can actually see through the bubbles a little bit. You can see some overlaps between the bubbles, makes it a little easier on the eyes, right? Okay. Now, isn't this all far easier than Power Maps? When we had worked on Power Maps, it was kind of hard to get in the settings and fix it, right? How many of us you? How many of us think that this is easier than Power Maps? Right. Super easy, says Sundaram and Goodwin, right? Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Divya, also for that comment. So I've adjusted the transparency. I've added a blue border, right? And I can hide the size legend on the right hand side if I don't want to see it. I can click on this and I can just hide this card. Sum of sales. I don't want that. I just want to see the sales in the whole world. This is great. I like this view here. Okay. But remember, what we were really concerned about was profitability. So it's time to bring profitability into the picture. So Karina says yes, haha, absolutely. Karina says it's easier than Power Maps, and Hiroki also says also more beautiful than Microsoft PowerPoint. Says Hiroki, you're right. You're right. It's far more intuitive compared to other visualizations, and that can make all the difference, right? When you have an audience, you don't want to turn them off. So let's bring out profit and let's add profit to the picture, folks. I could add profit to a lot of places, but I'm just going to drop profit on color and find out if I should be really excited about all these sales or if I should be worried. So I drag profit and the total profit, sum of profit, and I drop it on top of color. Moment I do that, I noticed that, whoa, we've got some concerns, right? So Texas, which had seemed quite good, is actually not making profits. It's actually loss making, right? I also noticed that Illinois and Ohio, right? I think the Great Lakes in that region, we've got some losses over there. Florida, not so great. Same for Panama. We've got concerns in Pakistan, Istanbul, Sweden wasn't doing so great, and Bangkok, Thailand is good for tourism, but hasn't worked out so well for us. Some parts of Australia and definitely Auckland, New Zealand as well. Okay. Again, I'll just click on color, and because I'm thinking about profits, it would be great if I can take green, and just choose green rather than blue. And if I can just, again, when I talk about loss, it would be great if I can just step up the colors to 6 colors and use the whole color range, right? And this is far better. Okay. Now this gives me a far better understanding of where geographically we've got profits and we've got losses going on. If you want to zoom in, right, on a particular country and explore the data visually, let's say I want to zoom in on France because I can't seem to see what's going on in Europe here, right? So I can just click on the magnifying glass icon over here below where it says sheet 4. I just click on the magnifying glass and I type France, press enter, and boom, it zooms into France. Now again, just for France, I might need to increase the size of my bubbles while I view France a little bit to see what's going on in France. Okay, so we seem to be making a lot of profits over here. My French isn't that good, so I'm not going to try and pronounce this. And over here as well, I can try this out here, Brittany. This is easy. Okay, the Alps, this seems to be good. But Italy, okay, we're outside France, not so profitable. Okay, great. So we can zoom back out, right? So how do you do that? There's the unpin button over here. You can see it below the plus minus, there's the unpin button. Just click that to reset the map, okay? But when you reset, you realize, whoops, I had increased the size of the bubbles for France and it seems to have gone up. So no worries, just go to your size and bring it down, back down to a point where you can actually make good sense out of your graph. Okay, there we go. So nice view of global sales and profits, right? And Tableau helps you navigate and unpin and pin till you understand what's going on. Now, if you want to investigate what's going on, we're going to do it a little bit more after we come back, right, from the break. Do you want to break now, or do you think you can just go on for maybe 2 or 3 minutes more and then take a break, logically before the next sheet? Okay, folks think they can go on. All right, just for 2 or 3 minutes. So to investigate poor furniture profits, remember my concern was what was going on with the furniture, right? So what I'll do is I'll drag the category dimension to the filter shelf, right? So let me go to dimensions and pick the category. There are three categories: office supplies, furniture, and technology. Okay, so there we go. It was right on top. Look, silly me, I couldn't find it. Here we go. So I'll take category. This time I'll drop it on this area here called filters. It's above color, the whole box called filters. So I'll drop it there. Moment I do that, it asks me, which category do I want to filter in on. And in this, I'll check box furniture because I'm concerned about furniture profits. And I'll click on OK. Hope all of you have done that, right? So we've added that option there. Now you can actually click on the category furniture, right? And in the filter shelf, and there's a drop down over there, you can allow them to select their own drop down. You can click on show filter. And when you click on show filter, on the right hand side of the screen, you now see all the categories here. I can select furniture. I can select office supplies, technology, so which is all of them. Or I could even select just office supplies or just technology, right? So I make this interactive now. Now you can even make it easier by clicking on the top right corner here on the down arrow and choosing the single values list. Okay. So in category over here on the right corner, the down arrow and single values list. Now this is nice and easy. Radio buttons are even easier for us to make this interactive. So I can explore the profitability for each one of my categories. Anyone can pick whichever category that they're interested in. Okay, there you go. So now we've got an interactive, responsive world view of sales and profits for all the different categories. And I can rename this sheet Global Sales and Profits. I'm right clicking now and rename this Global Sales and Profits. There we go. Okay, so we've come a long way. So we talked about, now we'll use the hover feature and I'll hover over all the different views we've made. We learned that about the emerging markets. We learned about the seasonality in our data in the months of July and August. We also created a nice crosstab of profitability where we got concerned about furniture as a category for profitability. And we created a world view of sales and profits with all of the categories and specifically looked at furniture. And when we clicked on furniture, we realized that, whoops, there's a lot more reds in furniture. And even countries which were not, loss making for other categories like Indonesia become loss making for furniture. And there's far more red dots for furniture, even in the United States. When you look at the different states of Arizona, Colorado, Texas, the red dot became even bigger, Illinois. So clearly, a few more countries in the LATAM region like Brazil and Uruguay, where we're not making a lot of profits. So furniture seems to be a concern. We're going to go deeper into this, folks, when we come back from the break. So it's 9:15. Let's come back in how long? How much time do we need, folks? 10 minutes or 15? 15? Okay, Ashima says 15. How about everybody else? Okay, I get it. We'll be back in 15 minutes. See you at 9:30. Okay, thank you. So 9:30 Indian time, which should work out to, let me see here, 7:30 is 10 a.m. ET. So 9:30 should be 12 noon Eastern time and 9:30 Indian time. We'll see you again. Thank you. All right, so are we back, folks? Quick show of yes and no's. No's, well, we don't get no's, but quick show of yes in the chat box. So Sridhar, Sundaram, Hiroki, welcome back. And Meenakshi, welcome. Ashima and Karina. All right. So looks like a lot of us are back. We're probably looking for Goodwin. I think he'll be coming back any minute now. Joshua, Arvind, Divya. Okay, we're all here. Goodwin's here as well. Great. Okay, Kavita is here as well. Kasula, that's great. Okay. All right, so welcome everyone. We just worked on the global sales and profits. Let's get away And straight away, let's open a new sheet now. So I'm going to click on a new sheet on the right hand side of global sales and profits, and I'm going to open it up right away. Hey Chandra, welcome back. I think you're replying to me privately by accident. So in the drop box below the chat box, you've got to drop down and select everyone instead of selecting my name. So the chat will go to everybody, Chandra. Okay. All right, great. So we have created a new view, and we now know from our previous view that we do have concerns around profitability. We also look at the bubbles and we realize that the profitability for furnitures is a bigger concern than office supplies and technology. Clearly, big red bubbles for profitability in red color when I click on furniture. So, which furnitures are doing badly? Now, that's a question, right? So let's get deeper into that. I'll click on sheet number 5, and I'll press the control button down and select a few things. I want to know what's going on with the categories, subcategories, and the sales. Okay. So I'll click on category in the dimensions, press the control button on my keyboard, keep it pressed, and select the subcategory as well, and select sales. I select those three, right? And I go to show me. This time, show me recommends the horizontal bars. Now these are very effective, right? So I'll double click on the horizontal bars, go back to our presentation that we had looked at last week and connect back to our theory. So let me see if I can just go down a little bit and see we had a particular slide where we talked about this, right? Okay, here we go. Slide number 78. So we talked about which slide was better, the vertical bars or the horizontal bars, and we said that look, we've used vertical bars almost all our lives, but we realized in the last class that it's far easier to understand the horizontal bars. So now we're going to do that, and here we are in Tableau. We select this particular option, the horizontal bars, and we double click it. Tableau is actually recommending it as well, and we collapse show me. I click on show me again, it disappears, and here we go. So let's use the bar graphs we've collapsed show me, and let's create some hierarchies. You can create hierarchies in Tableau. So clearly when you look at subcategories, they're actually belonging to certain categories. So you can actually drag and drop. So what we're going to do is drag subcategory in the dimensions and drop it on top of category, right? So here we have subcategory right at the bottom of dimensions, and on top we've got the category. So I'm going to click on subcategory, drag it, and drag it right to the top. So it'll just take a while there while I get to the top. There we go. I keep dragging, and I go and drop it on top of category. And I create this combination. I create a hierarchy saying that subcategories are actually a part of categories, and I rename this products. Every product belongs to a particular category and a subcategory. Okay, and I say okay. So now you see the category and the subcategory, right? So I'll just show you here. So you see product category, product subcategory over here in the dimensions, right? And we've renamed this entire combination products, okay? And you can add product name as well. So what you can do is drop product name in the dimensions on top of this product combination that we just created, which includes categories and subcategories. So I'm going to choose the name of the product and actually drop it right on top of product on top. There you go. Okay, so let me just show you again. I just want to make sure that everyone follows this. I'll just pick up my pen. There we go. So over here, we've got product name. And over here, I've created a nice little hierarchy. Every product belongs to a certain category and a subcategory. So I'm going to now, and how did I do that? I picked up subcategory and I dropped it on top of category, and a text box came up and I renamed it product, right? That's how I'd done that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to take the product name and I'm going to drop it on top of product over here. And the moment I do that, it'll become a part of this hierarchy. Okay, so let me do that. Some intricacies involved here, so it's good that I just show you the steps. So I'll take product name now and go and drop it right on top of product like so. Okay. In fact, I can drop it below subcategory over here, right? Just below subcategory, right? That'll work. So now you see that product name has also become a part of this entire hierarchy that I've created called product. Now you still have full, drill down capability, right? So you can expand and contract stuff by clicking on the minus signs and the plus signs, and there's a bunch of them, right? So as you can see over here, if you scroll over the category in the sheet area, you see a minus sign here. In the subcategory, you see a plus sign, which means I can expand it. In the category, I see a minus sign, so I can actually contract it. Over here, I've got a minus sign in the rows. So you can use these to expand or contract whatever you want, right? So I'll click on minus in front of categories, and I'll click on plus again just to show you how that works. Okay. Okay. So you've actually got this view over here. What I'm going to do for the time being is I'll swap the axis, right? And we've done this once before, but we'll show you again. So over here, right below where you have the server menu, you have the swap axis button. So I'm going to swap the axis now. I'll click on that. Okay. And I'm going to swap the axis like this for the time being. Okay. And show you how we sort stuff in Tableau. So let me just resize this so it fits the entire screen. There's some white area here on the right side, which isn't particularly useful. So I'll just say fit the entire view. So it kind of, occupies the whole screen. I get a nice visual picture there, right? Okay. So we're going to sort stuff. Let's learn how to sort in Tableau. Let me first sort the different categories for you. So in the columns where I see category and subcategory in the pivot, I click on top of category and it becomes slightly darker in color. It becomes dark blue. And once I click on that, I can sort it by using the sort button next to the swap axis button, right? So there's sort ascending and then there's sort descending as well. For the time being, I'll choose this option here, right, which is swap descending. Moment I do that, I see technology is the highest, followed by furniture, followed by office supplies. So what it has done is it looked at the three categories and it sorted them in descending order, right? And it picked up technology as the category that was making the maximum profits. Now, I could do exactly the opposite. So I could click on, ascending order, and then office supplies would have come first. But I think this looks a little better. So I'll stick to this view here. Now, within the different categories, for example, within technology, if I would like to sort out these 4 bar graphs, right? Or within furniture, right? So how do you do that? Okay. Now in this view here, we see the tech is, clearly the most sales, then furniture, then office supplies. This time we'll sort by the subcategory. So the way you do that is you can click on subcategory. Okay. And when you click on subcategory, you come on top of the graph, you'll notice a very small icon over here, right on top of where it says sales. And on the left hand side of 1000K. And there's a small icon here. Now I'm going to click on this little icon, okay, and watch what happens. Boom, there you go, right? So what it does is it first sorts the categories, technology, furniture, and office supplies in descending fashion. Then I click on subcategories and I click on the little icon here. And within the categories, I actually do another sorting to look at each one of the particular subcategories. So clearly now I can see that the phones, are the highest, right, in terms of the sales, the sum of the sales, and then in technology followed by after the phones, which is the next one, which is most sales, most sum of sales after the phones. Anyone in the chat box? So technology, the maximum sales, sum of sales is in phones. How about after phones? Okay, we've got some chat responses, right? So we've got copiers, absolutely, followed by machines, followed by accessories, right? Makes it really easy for us to understand, all of this. And in office supplies, clearly, the highest is storage, right? Okay. So has everyone got this view here so far? Everyone's with us? Just say yes in the chat box. Okay. You're all with us? Okay. So I want to distinguish a couple of things. You have what is known as sorting, and then you have what is known as a quick sort. Okay. So which one is sorting and which one is quick sort is sort of easy to understand. So let me do that now. So over here you have the quick sort button. This is known as quick sort in Tableau. And over here you have the sorting by options, right? On the top in the menus. So you can use both of them to your advantage if you're feeling lazy. Quick sort is a great way to just go about it. Otherwise, you have, of course, in the bar menu, all the options over there, right? I'm going to move ahead now. If you want to see the actual value of sales, you can use the mark labels and you can turn on the labels at any point in time, right? So we'll just go to the labels and show the mark labels. There you go. You can see the actual value of the sales. But as always, I'm always concerned about profit. I'm not satisfied looking at just the sales. You can make a sale, but guess what? If you offer too much discount or if the shipping cost is way too high, it's not going to help the business. So let me drop the profit on color again. So I take profit from measures, I go drop it on top of color. Okay, a familiar story is beginning to emerge, right? We're seeing that tables are not so profitable. You can see that they're doing poorly from a profitability standpoint, despite the fact that sales seem to be looking very good for tables. I mean, I might have been tempted to think that, in furniture, tables was actually doing really well if I hadn't dropped profit on color. But once I do, I am concerned about tables. Question is this happening in all the markets, or is this something that's just happening in a couple of markets? So I need to drag something out from the dimensions and drop it on top of this graph to figure out whether the phenomenon of tables not making good profits is global or whether it's limited to certain markets. So can someone tell me which field should I pick out from dimensions and drop on this graph? Okay, we've got responses. Goodwin says market, absolutely true, right? Okay, and by the way, I'd missed a question I'd missed a comment from Karina. You can use tooltip for every visual that you create in Tableau. Karina is correct. You can create a tooltip, okay, and anything that you don't want to see in the graph, but you want to see when you hover over the data in the graph, that you can use a tooltip for, right? Okay, I hope that helps, Karina. I'm sorry that I missed that question earlier. And Goodwin says market, Seema says country, market, country and market says Minakshi, and Karina says market. Okay, absolutely. So I could go down to the country level, but at a high level right now, let me first figure out the markets, and then I can always, go into the country as well. So I'll drag market, okay, from the dimensions, and I'm going to go and drop this on the border of the graph. So how do I do that? So what should I'm going to do now? We've done this once earlier. I come over here, and the moment I bring it over here, you see all of these dotted lines, okay? And that's where you need to drop it, right on top of the dotted lines, like so, right? And I'm going to turn off the labels. It's a little distracting here with all the labels. So I'm going to remove the mark labels. This is much better. Now, this is where, we need to see what we want to do. So let's look at the concern, right? The concern was tables, right? So as you can see, there are some geographies in which the problem seems to be a little more pronounced. Four geographies where I see a lot of orange colors in tables. So which ones are those? So there's APAC, EU, LATAM, and the US. The ones where tables seem to be doing okay are EMEA and Africa, which by the way is an emerging market right now. Okay, so we do see that it seems to be a fairly global phenomenon. The fact that tables aren't making a huge lot of profits, right, seems to be a fairly global problem, right? Okay. Again, I would prefer if we just quickly tweak the colors, and I'm always, of view that something that the whole world understands intuitively, we don't need to reinvent the wheel there. So I'll just stick with my reds and greens when I talk about profitability. This is much better, right? Reds and greens, isn't it? Far more intuitive. And I now begin to see that, when the moment I do that, I see I have concerns around bookcases as well. In the US, I've got concerns around furniture in EMEA, maybe around supplies, right? Okay, so it's a little more pronounced in the APAC market. Yeah? Tables being not so profitable. It seems to be a little bit more pronounced in Asia Pacific. Okay, so I'm going to just add that as a comment. Maybe just add that as a comment for this point, and tables less profitable in APAC. And I'll just say relatively less profitable in APAC. There you go. Okay, so I've got my comment there now, right? There you go. So I hope all of you changed the colors and you've got greens and reds and you've got your comment. In the meanwhile, I'll quickly toggle back to our presentation and look at something that we talked about in the theory. And it's really important, folks, that we connect the theory with the practice. Otherwise, this will become a fairly academic exercise, right? So here's my presentation again. And what we talked about is you don't want to draw graphs just for the heck of drawing graphs, right? Sorry to use that word, but here you go. Here's a graph that's not making a lot of sense to any of us, right? Because beyond a certain point, let's say beyond Brazil over here, right? I can't seem to figure out the difference in how many emergencies have happened in the different countries. Sure, I can tell that there seem to have been a lot of emergencies in China, the Philippines, in India, in the United States, in Indonesia. That's all great. And then maybe I can see Mexico, Nigeria, Kenya, and Vietnam had their fair share of emergencies. But beyond that, all the countries look very similar. So wouldn't it be great if we could just group all of this, right? And put it all together and say, hey, these are the other countries. And then my graph would be much simpler. I'd be able to make sense of it. So Tableau allows you to do that. Okay. So again, connecting back to our theory and then going back to practice. Now let's group something. As you can see here, there's some fields that are not making a lot of sense, right? So Meenakshi says group it as one. Absolutely. Thank you, Meenakshi. So we're going to group envelopes, we're going to group fasteners, we're going to group labels, because there's not a huge amount of value that we're deriving from having envelopes, fasteners, and labels, because there isn't a huge amount of data or insight that I see from this part of my graph over here, right? So I'd be better off just grouping all of this information as one. So how do I do that? Well, I can click on the ones that I want to group. So I'll click on top of envelopes, okay, and then fasteners and then labels. The moment I click all three of them together using the control button on my keyboard, and I do need to keep the control button pressed down, there's an option that looks a little bit like a paperclip, and it says group these members. Okay, so I go and click on the paperclip, group the members, and it's made one group out of all three of these, right? And you can see that group now. Okay, and it says envelopes, fasteners, and labels. When I hover over this, I can right click and rename this particular group as well. I can edit the alias. Okay, and I can call this other office supplies. Okay, and that simplifies my graph there, right? Just makes it a little bit more legible for me to understand. I might even have thrown in art along with the other supplies, right? So that's perfectly fine. In fact, I think I can still do it if I just click on both of these and just create one more group and then go ahead and edit the alias and just say yet other office supplies. Okay, there we go. That's just a crazy acronym there. All right, so we've got a nice representation. I can clearly see tables, bookcases, and chairs have concerns in just one geography each. Tables, concerns in a lot of geographies. Supplies, maybe just one geography. Okay. Has everyone reached this point so far? You're all with me? It's okay if you have a couple of things up and down. That's perfectly fine. If a couple of things are a little different, right? Now to simplify this, I'm going to swap the axis, right? Remember, we talked about it, and again, connecting up with the theory, right? That it's far better that you go with, horizontal bars rather than vertical bars. We talked about it in this slide here, how human beings like the data, how you want to orient their data, and that the one on the right is better than the one on the left. So it's time to put that into practice, folks. So I'll click on the swap axis button and boom, in 1 second, I get this view over here. And I can select normal view instead of entire view now. So I'll go to entire view and I'll click standard. Okay, or maybe fit width, that should be fine. I think I'll go with, let's see here, entire view, fit width. Fit width is okay. I'll go with the fit width option. Okay, you can go with the option that works well on your computer. For the time being, I'll just remove markets. I understood what's going on with tables in different markets, so I'll just remove markets from my columns and drop it on the gray area, anywhere here in the gray area, so it disappears. Okay, and I'll just go with my main theme, which is that tables are not so profitable, right? Okay, now I'll rename the sheet sales by categories. I've done that. I've got my new sheet now. Okay, I hope everyone has the view now. Once you've all named it sales by category, in fact, let me just say category, save space there. There we go. Right, we'll open a new sheet and let's keep going on in our journey. And everyone can now participate. We've got a brand new sheet coming up. Now we're going to do some amount of linear regression using Tableau. So in case you haven't participated or you got lost somewhere behind, you can go ahead and join us now and look at us doing some predictive analytics, diving into the problem of profitability of furniture and tables, and trying to figure out why it's happening, what might be impacting our profitability. So, when we looked at the profitability for tables, we realized that some parts of Asia, and let me go back to global sales and profits, it was apparent that a lot of different parts of Indonesia, the Myanmar, and some parts of China and Europe, and even New Zealand and the some parts of Australia weren't so profitable when it came to furniture, and we're beginning to wonder if location has something to do with it. Of course, there was also a challenge in the U.S. as well. So the question on our minds is, are far-flung areas not so profitable on furniture? Is that what's impacting it? What's going on here, right? So we go to the next sheet, and what you need to do now is actually investigate shipping cost, right? And if there's an area that's very far away, is the shipping cost impacting the profit? So I'll drop shipping cost on column. I want to look at the total shipping cost, which at this point seems to be $1.3 million. Okay, and I want to look at how it's impacting the profit. So I'll take the profit, I'll go drop it on the rows. The view that I get right now, okay, so Arvind and Meenakshi said they need to have a look at grouping. Oh, I'm so sorry, I missed that comment. Let me go back. Okay, so okay, is it okay if I just create a new one here, maybe for a second? So all we're done, right? If I just give me a second here. I'm sorry, I missed that comment earlier. So let me go back and see if I can group it. Okay, there we go. So this is where I was, Arvind and Meenakshi. This is where we were, right? And the way we grouped stuff was we just clicked on, for example, let me group paper and supplies over here. Just as an example, I click on this little icon over here, which says group members, the paper clip, and then I right click on paper and supplies. I click on edit alias, and I say one new group. Okay, I just call it one new group. There you go. So that's the way you group. Okay. All right. I hope that helps. Okay. So Arvind and Meenakshi, I hope that was helpful. Right. Let me just check on the chat box and Okay, Arvind says yes, and so does Meenakshi. That's great. Okay, so I'll come back to a new sheet, and what we've done so far in terms of investigating, how we were doing in terms of profitability and impact on a couple of things. So just give me a second here. Right, there we go. So again, shipping cost and profits. So let's get back on track. We'll come and drop shipping cost on the columns, and we'll drop profit on top of colors. Sorry, I took discount accidentally. So I'll take profit and drop it on top of the rows. Okay, there we go. So this point currently shows us that the profit is $1.4 million and the shipping cost is $1.3 million. Now that's awfully close, isn't it? So we want to look at how that's going. Let's see how it's going from one market to another market. Now again, I want to connect up the theory with the practice. So one of the things that we learned is that you can use shapes to your benefit, and shape is a pre-attentive human attribute. So let's look at some of the pre-attentive visual attributes that we had seen, and let's see how we can use some of those pre-attentive visual attributes to our advantage. Okay, right. So we'd seen that you can use shape as well, to your benefit, right? And you can use shape for categorical variables, right? So in categorical variables, you see position, you see shape, and you see different colors. So let me go back to Tableau now. Now, when you think about market, right? Market is a categorical variable, isn't it? Yes or no? Isn't market a categorical variable? Comments, folks? Okay, absolutely. So why don't we represent market using a shape? So what I'll do is I'll drag market and I'm going to drop it on top of shape. Okay, like so over here where you see shapes. Now what it does is it breaks up that total into all the different markets, and it represents, LATAM with a different shape. It represents the US with a triangle, LATAM with a diamond, Africa with a circle. It represents EMEA with a cross. So a different shape for each of the different markets. So this is how you go back to the theory and connect the presentation where it says use shape for categorical variables, and so you make advantage of that theory and you use shape to represent each of the markets, right? Okay, Ashima says nice. Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much. So now what we'll do is we'll use categories and add them to color. So we want to see how the different categories are doing. I'm going to drag out category and drop it on top of color. Moment I do that, I now get, right, so Karina says kind of cute. Yes, absolutely. So the moment I pick up category and I drop it on top of color, I I started out with the total profit, total shipping cost. I then broke it up into each of the markets using the shapes. Then I'm throwing in colors. So for each of the market, for example, for EMEA, I had one cross, but now I have three crosses. Blue denotes furniture, orange denotes office supplies, and red denotes technology. And similarly for each of the markets you start seeing. But what you see is for EMEA, they're actually very close to each other. But for some of the others, for example, when you look at the US market, suddenly you notice furniture is over here, but guess what? Office supplies are here and technology is over here. So clearly, when you start looking at the US market, profitability and shipping cost are impacted in a bigger way. Okay, when you actually drop, it on color, than when you look at the EMEA market, where there isn't that much of an impact. Okay. By the way, the US is far bigger, as a geography. So you begin to understand the impact. It also ties up perfectly well with the other graph you made where you saw, okay, in the US, it looked like there's a lot of profitability issues, and also in APAC. So let me go back here. Let me look for APAC. APAC is a square, and you notice also for APAC, technology, furniture, and office supplies, they're all pretty far spread out, isn't it? Which makes sense because when I go to global sales and profits, I see, yeah, for APAC, it looks like the red dots are scattered all over, right? Asia Pacific, okay, Australia and New Zealand. Okay, so this is adding up, but we're going to add more to this. What we're going to do is we're going to throw in the customer IDs. Okay, so I'm going to pick up each customer ID. It's got to be somewhere here. Let me see. It should be in the dimensions somewhere. Yes, here we go. It's right on top, silly me. So I'll pick up customer ID and I'll drop it on top of details. Okay. So what I'm doing now is, okay, I've got the markets, I've got the categories, I've got the total shipping cost, total profits. But now I'd like to see how this looks for each and every customer. Okay. Each and every customer ID in my data set, which is 38,000 rows. The moment I drop customer ID on top of details, it's going to show me the details for all the customers. Now you can clearly see blue is, close to the center of the line that divides profit and shipping cost. Okay. So let me just drop this line here for you. Okay. Give me a sec while I do that. So think of this as the line of profitability. Okay, because anything that's above this line is positive in profit, but anything that's actually below the line is negative in its profit, right? Now you can clearly see that there's a huge number of transactions that actually are not profitable at all. We're deeply concerned about all the transactions that we see below the line, right? They're all, sales, but they're not profitable. And there's way too many transactions that are below the line. You also see blue is, sort of concentric. It's centered around the intersection of X and Y axis. Red seems to be scattered out. So when you look at the furniture is very close to this horizontal line of profitability, which means there's a very narrow margin dividing profitability of furnitures. But when you look at the reds, the technology, right, you notice that the technology is actually scattered out nicely. It's way above the line of profitability in many cases, which tells you that when you look at shipping cost versus profit, you'd be less concerned about the reds than you would be about the blues. So let me just, analyze this a little bit further. What we're going to do is we're going to disaggregate the data set. Okay. And what I mean by that is right now I've thrown in all the customer IDs, but I want to see each and every row of data as one point on this graph. And how do I do that? Nice and easy. You go to the analysis right on top where you see file, data, worksheet, dashboard, and story, and then you see analysis. You click on analysis and you see aggregate measures. It's actually been checked for you. It means that currently, instead of showing you all 38,000 rows, Tableau has aggregated it as per each and every customer ID. So I'm going to disaggregate. And I select that button. I've removed the check mark. Now the blues have got scattered all across the line. So you see when you disaggregate the data and you plot the data at each and every row, okay, of data, you realize that the problem is even more serious. If this is the line of profitability, earlier my blue color was nice and plump. It was kind of looking like this. But now when I disaggregated, it's actually looking even closer to the line of profitability. So I'm deeply concerned about furniture profits, which seem to be way too close to the line. I'm a little less concerned about office supplies and technology because I can see them above the line in many cases. But furniture, I'm beginning to get even more worried about, ain't it? Okay. So I think we've got a few comments. Let me just see there. Disaggregation here means, okay. So disaggregation means that each and every row of your Excel sheet is being plotted as shipping cost, profit, market, furniture, shipping cost, profit, market, category on this graph. So when you and customer ID, okay. So each and every row of data is being shown as one point on the graph. That is the meaning of disaggregation. Basically, you have not done any grouping. This is 100% without grouping. Every row of data in that Excel sheet is being represented as one point on this graph. That's disaggregation. Okay, is that clear now? Ashima? Okay, so we'll just wait for Ashima. Okay, she's clear. Superb. All right. So now that we've disaggregated this, and we'll actually, I'm happy to actually open up the Global Superstore worksheet and show some of you one row of data while it actually opens up. Okay, here we go. Enable editing. There we go. Right. So let's look at one row of data, right? So you can see over here in this one row of data, let's take row number 2. Okay. You can see shipping cost, you can see profit, right? So these two will be represented on the graph. You can also see we had represented on the graph category. Okay, so this will be represented on the graph. and then we'd also looked at customer ID. So you should see customer ID somewhere here, over here. Here you go. This will be, so this entire row number 2, okay, will constitute one shape, one point on your graph. And likewise, total in this data set, you've got 51,291 points, okay. So your Tableau worksheet over here has 51,291 points drawn on this graph, okay? And that's disaggregation for you. There you go. That should be crystal clear now. We're plotting each transaction at the record level, okay? And we'll move ahead. Now we can see that there are significant number of transactions below the line of profitability, okay? And we've got to look into that, right? And you can do a bunch of things to do that. What we'll do right now is that, we will go and drop a line of linear regression and see the impact of profitability and shipping cost on each other. So if you look at profitability as the dependent variable or independent variable, what would profitability be in this case? So I'm concerned about profitability. I'm concerned about how shipping cost impacts profitability. So which one is the dependent variable? I'm concerned about how shipping cost impacts profitability. So which one is the dependent variable? Okay, profit, absolutely, right? This is a second graph with profit and shipping cost on X and Y. Other attributes just appear. Yes, Ashima. Sridhar, shipping cost independent. Yes, okay. Only values. Okay, yes. Yes, okay. So shipping cost independent and profit is dependent. Absolutely. So let's go and create, something interesting here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop sales on top of labels, right? So let me drop sales on top of labels like this, so that I see the labels also. I see how much sales is going on each one of these locations. I can see the labels. What I'm going to do is drop a trend line, which is a linear regression trend line. Okay, how do I do that? Let me show you right away. Over here, you see that we're in the data pane. The data pane has dimensions on the left hand side. It also has measures. But you also notice that there's another pane next to the data pane, which is known as the analytics pane. So this time we're going to go and click on the analytics pane, and let's do that now. The moment we do that, we come to this particular view over here. Now in this, you'll see there's some summary statistics, there's some constants, medians, box plots, all of the things that you hopefully did with Ujjwal yesterday. I think some of you did box plots in the Excel analysis tool pack yesterday, right? Did you guys do some box plots? Yes or no, folks? We'll just wait for some comments. Okay. Okay, in R. Okay, you guys did it in R, introduction to R. Okay, that's cool. So you can do all of those cool things here as well. We'll talk about that. But for the time being, I'm interested in the trend line, the trend of profit and shipping costs. So I'll click on the trend line. In fact, I'll drag it, okay? And I'll bring this here on top of the graph. I haven't dropped it yet though. It says add a trend line, and it gives you multiple options. It gives you a linear regression trend line, logarithmic, exponential, polynomial. In this case, I've got one dependent variable, one independent variable. I'm going to keep this as a linear regression trend line. Okay, so I'm going to drop it on top of linear like so. And the moment I do that, I get 3 lines immediately. Okay, and you can see there's a blue line, there's an orange and a red line very close to each other. So orange is office supplies and red is technology, and they're pretty close to each other. And immediately you get the linear regression for shipping cost versus profit in Tableau. Now notice this, right? These two lines are pretty close to each other. Okay, but they're actually above. Visually you can see that if these two lines are at this angle, then the line that represents furniture is actually at a different angle. It's probably at an angle that's a little lower. So it means you also see that it's closer to the line of profitability, right, than the other two lines. So if you look at the absolute horizontal being the line of profitability, the distance between the furniture line and the line of profitability is lesser then the distance between the lines that represent office supplies and technology, that's actually greater, right? So it means that furniture is impacted more by shipping cost than office supplies and technology. And in fact, if you want to be very specific and you want to be able to do predictive analytics, you can hover over this line. The moment you hover over the line, you get the equation. Profit is equal to 0.74 multiplied by shipping cost plus negative minus 4.4. You also get the R squared value, which, by the way, when not a statistics class today, I think R squared is the coefficient of determination. You also get a P value, right? So all of those things, Tableau provides you, right? And you've got your linear regression trend line, profit equal to 0.74 shipping cost minus 4.4. Okay, so that's how easy that can get. Okay, so let's just get this down on the board. Profit equal to 0.74 into shipping cost plus negative 4.4, right? Okay, great. So this is how you do linear regression in Tableau. Has everyone been able to do this? Yes, everyone been able to practice this? Let's see. Can I get any one person who is happy to share their screen? I'd love to see your screens, right? One of you that can share your screen. Okay, is there anyone who I can just, make the host and so that we can see, this at your end? Anyone, folks? Venkat, Sridhar, Hiroki, Ashima, Divya, anyone that I can just make you the host? Okay. Okay, Divya says that she can share the screen. Okay, so Divya, what I'll do now is I'll make you the host, and all you need to do is click on share screen and then click on desktop, and then it'll say that this will, it'll give you a menu saying and a warning saying that this will stop the other person from sharing their screen. Don't worry about that. Just click yes. So I've made you the host. Share your screen and then click on desktop and click on yes. And let's have a look at your regression trend line. There we go. Ashima, I've made you the host. I'm sorry, Divya. Yeah. Okay. So we're beaming now from Divya's screen worldwide. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So I hope you had fun doing this, Divya. Okay. All right. That's great. And I know that all of you have been able to practice this. So this really is great, that we've achieved so much together in this session. So let's go down and I'll reclaim the host now. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm back the host. I'm the host again. So I'll project my desktop. There we go. Okay. So now imagine, that you want to click on any particular line and just look at that transaction. So you can do that. So if you click on this line here, this, I'm sorry, not the line, the transaction over here, which is 8,000, right? You just click on that. You notice that you can actually view the data. So you can click on this, view data icon over here. Once you click on the line, and you can view this particular transaction. You can even copy the data if you want, right? And go paste it. You can copy it here. You can export it. All of that is possible, right? For each of these transactions. So that's point number one. Bring up the tooltip and view any point. For example, if you're deeply concerned about this point over here, right? You can click on it and go and figure out what's going on here, right? So this is customer number CS12505 in the US. Profits are look really bad, right? And shipping cost is not so high. So I'm wondering if we cut them a really big discount, right? So you can make those kind of investigations, right? Okay. So for now, I'm going to remove sales. I'm going to take sales and drop it out into the gray area. Okay. There we go. And just keep it as a trend line. And I'm okay with my trend line right now. That's fine. So I took sales and I dropped it out. And I'm going to rename this sheet customer breakdown. Okay. Because I plotted each and every customer. So customer breakdown. There we go. Okay. Now, suppose you want to share this, with people and you want to collaborate with different people, right? You need to create a dashboard. So let's create a dashboard really fast in Tableau. And the way you do that is you have a, small icon there next to create a new sheet. You have an icon that says create a new dashboard. Okay. And it's at the bottom. And I'm going to click on that icon now. Let me just show you so you don't, get mixed up when you do this at your end. Okay. Yeah, Sridhar, you can. Sridhar says, if you want to add more factors, so for example, instead of a univariate, you can do a multivariate as well, Sridhar, as a part of Tableau, right? So for example, Sridhar's point is that you might even want to bring into the picture discounts. For example, instead of saying profit as only shipping cost, could we also look at discounts and see how profit is being impacted by shipping cost and discount. So that is also possible. So for the time being now, what we will do is we've got around 15 minutes to go. We'll create our very first dashboard if everyone is okay in Tableau, and we'll make it interactive. So you've got this button over here. Okay, and this is to create your new dashboard. So just click on this button and we'll create a new dashboard in Tableau right away. I'm clicking that now. The moment I do that, I notice that all of the views that I had created, all of the work I've done is available over here on the left hand side. Okay. And it's really easy for me to bring this into the picture. All I need to do is drag and drop. That's it. So it says drop sheets here, as easy as that. I'm going to click on global sales and profits and bring it right on top and drop it on top of the graph. Okay. After that, I'm going to see if I can pick out the other ones that I find interesting. I find the customer breakdown interesting, so I'll come and drop it over here at the bottom. Now, don't drop it over here. Drop it right at the bottom like this. It should actually take the bottom half of the screen and show it in gray color. So I'll drop it like that. Okay, that's the customer breakdown. And I'm also interested, for example, let's say in the sales seasonality, and I want to talk about the sales seasonality, or maybe emerging markets, right? It's global sales, and there we go. I'll take emerging markets, I'll bring it to the bottom right corner, and I'll drop it over there. Okay. Okay. So I've got these three views, okay, that I've got as a part of my dashboard, right? And now, this is the very first dashboard that we've created, right? And you can actually, instead of a desktop browser where you say size on the top corner, top left corner, it says size desktop browser. You can see if you can, choose a laptop browser. So I'll choose a laptop browser. Okay, this is far better, right? Now, instead of the emerging markets, let me take a slightly, you can take a slightly different view, right? Instead of emerging markets, let me just see if I can take this one here. There we go. Yeah, this is better. Okay, there we go. I can rename this sheet 5 as category profit per category. Okay, there we go. Profit per category. Go back to my dashboard, and it's actually got renamed automatically as profit per category. There you go. And you can see when I click on the radio buttons, furniture, office supplies, and technology, only the top graph is responding, right? The other two graphs are not responding. So, which is not so cool because we want all of them to respond together. So what I can do is I can actually, go on this pill here, this drop down pill here. Okay. So where it says category, just go on the drop down over here, and I can say apply to worksheets, all using this data source. And the moment I do that, whenever I select a particular category, all the graphs are going to become responsive and they will represent only that category. There you go. Right? So this is office supplies, this is technology, okay, and this is all of them put together. Okay. And this becomes your dashboard, your very first Tableau dashboard. And I'm going to go into presentation mode now. So here we go. How do you go into presentation mode? Okay, So quick thing, we will see one of the requests is, if we can also look on the different type of filters. So we'll definitely explore that in the class. I think today we're sort of reaching the end of time, but I've got that request down, and I'll see if I can look at the different kind of filters in the next class. So now over here, thank you so much for that query. Now over here, you've got the dashboard interactive, and what we're going to do is move to the presentation mode, right? So let me just circle that over here. Okay, it's over here. You can see the presentation mode icon, right, over here. And you want to go and click on that so that you move to the maximized view. I'm going to click on it now, and boom, there you go. This is your very first sales and marketing dashboard created in Tableau, right? And look at how responsive it is. You can click on it right there, click on the radio buttons, and each one it responds and gives you the global sales and profit, customer breakdowns, the line of best fit in terms of regression, and how profits are performing for different categories. Okay, isn't that superb, right? With Sundaram says awesome, Joshua says fantastic. Okay, just Joshua says awesome, Sundaram fantastic, and Karina so cool. Absolutely. And you have a very nice feature, okay, which we want to just summarize here. So this is the dashboard, and I'll rename this global sales dashboard. You also have a story point. So I'll click on the story point and look at how quickly I can add a story, right? So I'll drop emerging markets over here, and I'll add a comment saying Canada is still emerging, okay? And that's my first point in the story. And then I can add more points in my story, right? And build this story further, right? For example, I could take the crosstab here and drop that as well, right? And I could add more comments there on the crosstab. I could say concerns around furniture profits, okay? And then I could probably add one more point to the story, right? And I could say overall global sales are good though, okay? And then finally, I could drop customer breakdown, and I could say, with the exception of furniture being impacted by shipping cost. There you go. And that then becomes your very first story point. You can rename this the story of profitability, of our profitability. And you can actually present directly by using this particular view over here, right? So I'm going to present now. Canada is still an emerging market for us. There are concerns around the profitability of furnitures. While overall the global sales and profits are looking good, the exception is furnitures being impacted by shipping cost in multiple geographies. So you can create these kind of story points using the story point feature in Tableau and move to presentation and directly talk about your story in the presentation. All right. So I hope we've all learned how to create views, dashboards, and story points in Tableau. I hope you had fun today. I think this is a lot for one class. I really want to thank you all for your patience. While we went through all of this today, it was phenomenal, right? And Sundaram says, I love the story points view. Absolutely. The story points view is Really useful. You don't have to go to any PowerPoint at all. You can even add your comments right here, right? You can just right click here and annotate this with a nice comment saying that technology is not a concern um, for us at this point. You don't need to have a different PowerPoint with an image and a story. So all you need to do is create a story point in Tableau and walk people through your story by just using one click and with the comments all available right there. Right, really nice feature there. Okay, you don't have to go anywhere. You work right here visually. You present right here. You create your dashboards right here. You can even share your dashboards with others on the server by publishing this data source. Right, you can publish this, entire work that you've done. You can publish the workbook here. Click on Publish Workbook. You need to connect up to a server and then publish this to other people. Right, and if you want to do that, I can guide you on a very small video on how to publish your work in Tableau to other people. They can even open it in their Chrome browser and view it just in their browser. Well, okay, this is all great. And let me see if I can quickly get the feedback form out. Meenakshi says, thank you, Amit. It's really awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Meenakshi. I really appreciate that. I hope, you guys enjoyed this, to the hilt. And let me just see if I can quickly share this feedback with everybody, shorten up the URL a little bit. Okay. And I got, I think some of you wanted to see more filters, so I will arrange for that for sure. Right. So thank you for that, request. You can even request a few other things and I'll see, what all we need, what all you would love to see, because Tableau is really vast. So anything that in specific you want to see, I'm more than happy to kind of do that. Okay. So just Karina, thank you so much for your comment. Just one help. Okay, so I will share the recording as soon as possible. Absolutely. Just one help, if I can get the feedback from everybody, that would be a great help to me, right? So can you just confirm in the chat box once you're done with the feedback, please? I've just sent the form out. So Karina, just take a couple of minutes and share the feedback with me before you head out. Same for all of us: Meenakshi, Joshua, Hiroki, Goodwin, Divya, Chandra, Ashima, Arvind, and Venkat. She's there as well. Okay. And if there's a few more things you'd like to, see in Tableau, like filters, which one of you mentioned, please do let me know, and I'll make sure that I cover that for you as well. Okay. Okay. So Meenakshi, just press Control Shift N, and it'll work. Okay. Control plus Shift plus N, and then it'll work, right? Yes, Meenakshi, I understand the feedback form is not opening because you're not in incognito mode. Just press Control Shift N, and the feedback will work. So Goodwin is done. Let me see how many feedbacks are in. We have 8 feedbacks in. We should have a few more, folks, because there's 12 of us here today. So everyone, please. See, feedback's really important. It helps me kind of get better at this. 10. Okay, superb. Let me see how many more we've got flowing in. Two more required. And I'm done for the day. Okay. Kavita is done as well. So, whoa, thank you so much. That's overwhelming feedback there. I want to thank all of you for the feedback, and I'll make sure that I cover a few more things for you. If there are things you'd love to see in Tableau, just email me. My direct email ID, I know that you've been mailing contact, but if there are things that require my direct attention, right? So don't hesitate, like your resume, um, you want to mail your resume to me and get specific advice, Amit at EquiSkill.com, for specific one-on-one things that pertain to you. For everything else, of course, you do have the contact team, contact at the rate EquiSkill.com. I'll see that I get the video across to you tomorrow itself, so you don't have to wait for sure. And Ashima says, request you to cover the server connection. Okay, okay. And so 2 requests, one was for filters, one was for server connection. So Ashima, you mean a server connection to publish your work to other people? Is that what you mean? Okay, got it. Okay, so we have 2 requests. One is server connection, one is filters in Tableau. I'll make sure that I cover both of those. And we have 11 people who have given the feedback. Oh, 515, you've made my day. Thank you so much. A very good night to all of you, and see you in next week's class. Okay. Bye bye. Chandra, Divya, Goodwin, Hiroki, Joshua, Karina, Sridhar, Sundar. See you all next week. Good night and good day wherever you are, and good afternoon to Goodwin in Nigeria as well. Okay. Thank you.